Hello everyone, it is Chastity doing another Instagram Live, and I have a story for you people today. There's a story I have to tell. I have to tell you the story about when I lived with an alcoholic roommate in Independence, Missouri. This is the kind of thing that will probably never happen again, and my former roommate is probably gonna want to kick my ass for telling this, but this is the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And you deserve to hear the truth straight from the horse's mouth. Oh, my sister. I'm gonna wave to my sister. My sister Charity has joined the chat. Hello, Charity. So here's the thing. I lived with an alcoholic roommate. Now you have to understand, River, my former roommate, we knew each other. We used to work at Hy-Vee Health Market in Lee Summit, Missouri. We used to work at the Hy-Vee Health Market at the Lee Summit East Hy-Vee on Rice Road. That was where we met. And back then, we developed a friendship. It was very interesting because at the time, they had chosen to go by the name Rose. And so we were stocking things in the health market at Hy-Vee. Charity says, hi, great to see you. Love your videos. Thank you, Charity. I hope Mom loves my videos too, if she ever does see these videos. But it's also embarrassing, and my mom will probably punish me for embarrassing her with some of the things I say. But I only speak good things about my mom, okay, on my streams. That's what I try to do. But anyway, more importantly, so River and I, back when River was Rose, I asked them, what color rose do you identify as? And they're like, I'm a black rose. And I said, well, that's funny because I'm the white rose. And so we had a friendship, okay? What happened is this person, at the time, Rose, and now identifies as River, a trans man. Well, they went to Canada. They lived in Canada with someone, and then that relationship ended, and they came back to the U.S., and they didn't have a place to go. They were homeless, and living situations didn't work. And at the time, I had lost my job with Brilliant, and I thought, well, okay, this person needs a place to stay, and I'm hoping I can get a roommate to, pay half the rent or whatever. That was the plan, okay? And so I'm like, okay, come on, Rose, because that was her name at the time. Come to Independence and come move in with me. We'll work it out with management. I got them on the lease and everything. And we lived together, okay? We lived together in Independence in my apartment, but unfortunately, they didn't help pay the rent. Unfortunately, I didn't realize what a bad alcoholic they were. And some things were happening that I did not approve of, okay? And River, I want you to know I love you, I care about you as a person, but there are some things that were just not right, as I'm sure you remember. You did things you should not have done, and I did things I should not have done. And so what was happening is this person, with their addiction to alcohol, they were also struggling to find employment, and they briefly got hired at the Independence Hy-Vee, which I also worked at the time. But then they decided to take the COVID shot, and then they became very sick from the COVID shot, unfortunately. And so then they had just started the job, and they had, they didn't make it to work, and they ended up getting fired. And it was sad, but here's the thing, is this person, my former roommate, well, all they would do is drink alcohol and eat my food, and even though they applied for jobs and nothing ever happened, and they were too much of a mess to be working a job, I knew that, they knew that, and I'm like, what am I going to do? I have this person who's a friend, but they're also an alcoholic, living in my apartment. And here's the thing, I wasn't mad at River for being addicted to alcohol. I understand addiction is a very delicate thing. And but what I was mad about was that River was having sex with people in my apartment while I was at work, and sometimes while I was home, having sex with strangers in my apartment. I told him to stop, didn't listen to me, and was even having sex for money sometimes. It was a tragic story. So basically I had an alcoholic prostitute living in my apartment. And this was a very sensitive situation because that is not my lifestyle. And it's ironic because the only person who was not having sex in that apartment during the time I lived there was me. It was very, very interesting. It was very enlightening. And, so River would say strange things. Like, I remember the time River wanted to get a pet tarantula. And I was not fine with the idea of having a pet tarantula. Or anything else that River said, I was usually not fine with. And there were many reasons to not want a pet tarantula in that apartment. Like it might bite us and poison us and die. That was one reason, but that wasn't what I told River. What I actually told River is, look, no, River, we can't have a pet tarantula because you would try to have sex with the spider. And River said, no, that would be bestiality, and I have standards. And I said to River, you have standards. Really? You're an alcoholic prostitute who doesn't help me pay the rent and bills, but you have standards. I'll never forget when River said, I have standards. I'm like, okay, maybe you do have standards, River, but I have different standards, and I prefer for people to not be having a whorehouse in my apartment. I prefer for prostitution to take place somewhere far away or not at all, in my opinion. I am Chastity White Rose, the vegan virgin. I am completely anti-sexual. But here I was living with the Black Rose, who at the time was a real mess. I love River to death. River's a friend to this day. I still always want to check, and I want River to be okay, but you have to understand, we can't live together ever again because I have trust issues and I have standards. But when a lot of things developed, there was some scary times where River was throwing things and destroying my property. It was bad, and everyone told me that I should kick him out. And I even tried, but the management wouldn't let me remove River from the lease because I didn't make enough money to afford the rent. But here's the thing, River wasn't bringing any income. So the management wouldn't let me remove River from the lease, so I couldn't legally kick him out. So I was stuck with him. And it was a very interesting situation. This is actually a great pro-life analogy here, because I will never experience pregnancy, but here's the thing, is I was responsible for this entire other human being that I could not get rid of, okay? And me being pro-life, the only thing I could do with River is refrain from killing him, because there were times I felt like it. I also don't kill spiders. I get them to walk onto the broom and then take them outside and drop them off into the grass. But I don't kill people. That is my least favorite thing to do. But one of the things that I thought was so interesting about the time when I lived with River and we had different standards is that we were friends and we lived together and we were comfortable with each other, okay? So we would actually sometimes just be completely naked. I kid you not. We were sometimes, I'd come out of the shower and I'd just be naked. I didn't cover up at all. I mean, why bother? I mean, it's not like it was time to start having standards, right? And one thing that became very clear is that even though we had seen each other completely naked, there was no sexual attraction of any kind. Like, not at all. Not at all. You know, and it was just so interesting because although River was a mess and he had questionable standards, I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about myself during that time. You know, and so we were not attracted to each other's bodies at all. And it was very interesting because I learned about myself, and River, I think River learned a lot about himself too. And I refer to River as him because since the time I met River, even at the time when they looked female, they're a trans man and they've been on testosterone some time now. So they don't look like a woman in any capacity anymore. Not to me. But even when they looked like a woman, I always said to River, "You're such a chill dude, bro. Like, you're such a bro. You're like, we would talk about anime, video games. We listened to the same music, you know. It was cool. So we were always friends. We were great friends. We were like the best friends, you know. It was so cool. But of course, you know, things weren't always good, weren't always positive. You know, when we lived together, and that's why I would never do it again. But so one time I was watching like some Korean guy or Japanese, but it was some Asian guy, okay? And I was watching him play Tetris Effect Connected. And I said, "Hey River, I'm watching this guy play Tetris, and this is like Tetris porn." Because what I was meaning is that, like, you know, like this is like the greatest pleasure for a Tetris player to watch somebody play Tetris at this skill level. So I called it Tetris porn because it was so awesome. And then River's like, "Hey, I'm going to look up Tetris porn." And I'm like, "What?" Because as we all know, River had standards. So River gets on Pornhub on his phone and starts looking up Tetris on there. And so I should not have looked at this. I should not have. But here's what was so interesting. So River was finding videos of women playing Tetris very badly, I might say. And they were topless. So they were topless, they had their boobs out, and we were watching Tetris porn on Pornhub, me and my roommate. It was a very weird time because we have standards. Apparently the wrong standards, but we have standards. So here we are, I'm like, and my reaction watching Tetris porn on Pornhub was, you know what, these people play very badly. I could totally beat these people. And if this is what qualifies for porn, I could do that. But I won't because I'm not that kind of girl. Okay? I'm not gonna do something like that. But it was just funny because the reason I even mentioned this is because, hey, it is a little bit funny. But more importantly, I want you to understand the friendship and the intimacy that River and I shared. It was a very interesting time. We were, we were good friends and we were roommates for a while. And it was just interesting how that all happened. And I hope River doesn't mind me telling this story because, to be honest, I'm glad I had that experience. Sure, I was miserable at the time and wished I had never invited River to come live with me. But I learned so much about myself. I learned that I am truly pro-life. I also learned for absolute certain I am not attracted to the biological female body. it was very interesting. Of course, it also helps that I had no testicles, because I had those removed back in 2020. I don't know if that would have made a difference or not. I've always been curious, and I try to think about these things. But, I just thought it was so interesting how much I learned about myself and how I continued to try to help this person. I continued to try to help this person, and I didn't know what I was doing. And one thing that started happening is I started praying. I started praying for River, and my relationship with God has always been strange, very, very strange. But what happened is, when I say I was praying, is I was talking to Honesty the Unicorn. And Honesty the Unicorn is my God. It's the horse of truth. It is a horse in my dreams that literally represents truth. And so that's the thing you have to understand, is I was talking to Honesty the Unicorn. I was praying for River. I was asking, Honesty, what do I do? And it was, and some of this is even in my books I published. It was such a weird time. Another thing that started happening is I started going to church again. And I hadn't gone to church for 10 years. But I went to the church that was right next door to the Independence Hy-Vee, and Church of the Four Corners. And I started going to church again. And what happened is, living with River taught me that, I'm in over my head. I'm living with this person who needs help, and I can't provide whatever help they need. Believe me, I tried, but I didn't know what to do with an alcoholic. I didn't know what to do with a whore that was my roommate. And one thing I will never forget this, is I remember this day when River, one thing River would do is watch a lot of TikTok and listen to a lot of Spotify podcasts and stuff like that. And I'll never forget this one day where River said to me, "Chastity, would you judge me if I had an abortion?" And I'm like, maybe. Like, if there's something you're trying to tell me, River, I don't know. It was a weird thing. I wasn't expecting that. But then again, I wasn't expecting to have this person live with me in the first place. And so we had a conversation. And River had apparently had reason to believe that he might be pregnant. Now keep in mind, this is a trans man, but biologically female. So, River's like thinking they might be pregnant because their period was real late, and I know enough to know what that means anyway. So what do you think I did? I'm like, okay. So we went to the gas station and bought a pregnancy test, and it was negative. But during that time, I was thinking, how would I handle this situation? Like a what if scenario. What if my alcoholic roommate had been pregnant? How would that situation have gone? Well, then I would have been having a pregnant alcoholic whore living in my apartment, which would have complicated the situation a little bit more. And one of the first things that came to my mind was, at least people will know it wasn't my child. Because I had no testicles for at least 2 years, not 2 years. It wasn't even a year at that point. But so people would know that it wasn't my child. I wasn't the fool that got River pregnant, because I would never do something like that. And I have a reputation to protect. Now, I don't know what kind of reputation I have, but I want to protect it nonetheless. And so that's just the reality of the situation, is I had a potentially pregnant alcoholic prostitute roommate in my apartment. And I thought about it, and I thought about, well, if that is the case, this is a perfect chance to show that, I am a pro-life person. I am a person who cares for others, even though sometimes they have standards that I disagree with. And that kind of love that I showed to my former roommate is the kind of love that we can all show to each other. We can all be excellent to each other. And party on, dudes! You know? And so, that's the thing. Later on, from what I've heard from River, because I haven't seen him in a really long time, he's doing better and even got a job. And he's been on testosterone, and his voice sounds more masculine than mine even at this point. And I'm happy for River. I'm very happy for River. I hear he's doing well, and I hope that he continues to do well. Because, River, I want you to know that I love you as a friend. You are and always will be River Black Rose to me. And if you play my Tetris game, you may notice that it says Inspiration, River Black Rose on the title page. And I am never removing that, because what happened is River inspired me to get back into Tetris. Because, you know, I had played Tetris. I played Tetris all along throughout the years, but River had a Game Boy with the original Tetris on it. And I thought about it, and I got thinking, you know, even the Game Boy was capable of a Tetris game. What if I use my computer programming skills to make my own Tetris game? And I worked on it. It took me a year to get a fully functioning, working Tetris game. It took me a year. But I was able to, because I only had so much time to work on it, but in less than a month, I was already able to get a basic prototype where I had the long boy, you know, the I block, the long block in Tetris. And River called it the long boy, is what River called the I block of Tetris. And I did have a moving block that I could move around the screen. I couldn't even rotate it at that point. But I thought, wow, that is so cool. I actually made this. I made a basic prototype of a Tetris game, sorta, and I continued to work on it. I continued to do research. I continued to improve my skills with the C programming language and Raylib, and I made my own Tetris game. And I credit River for inspiring me to make my Tetris game. And because he's important to me, I include his name on the title page of my Tetris game, because he was such an inspiration to me. And River, I want you to know that you are and always will be important. But we need to talk about your standards. Oh, I'm so glad I got to tell the story about my former roommate and his standards. And now I am almost at Walmart, and I need to fill out an injury report. The team lead's going to help me tonight to do an injury report, because I hurt my arm right near my wrist really bad. And unfortunately, it's still hurting, and I hurt it real bad Friday. I don't have the full use of my left arm, and it scares me, because all this time I've been thinking about, well, which is more important, my schoolwork or my job? And then I started realizing that my health, my life and my health is actually more important than my job or school. And I had a mental health breakdown, guys. If you viewed my stream from Friday night where I did my Instagram live on the way to Walmart, you'll know I had an emotional breakdown. But it was a beautiful moment, because people, they were watching, and they commented positive, affirming things to me, while I had the worst breakdown that I've ever had on a video on the internet in my history of my life. That was a time to remember. And even though it's embarrassing, I'm keeping that video, because it was a good time. Thank you, my followers and listeners, for your words of encouragement that night. Once again, I'll say it means a lot to me. And I like this. I like being able to talk to people and tell stories. And I hope that anyone listening out there, if you have standards, that this story may teach you that you need better standards than River, my former roommate. Because I have standards too, and I do not approve that message. Thank you for listening, and thank you, especially thank you, Charity, for watching and commenting. This is the only time I have to really do anything is while I'm walking to work, I have time, and I do my live stream. So thank you, Charity. Thank you, my sister Charity. So, as I always say, I said it earlier, but I'll say it again, be excellent to each other. And party on, dudes.